Two guys, same party, same night. The first one is objectively the better-looking guy in the room. Broad shoulders, clean fade, the kind of face that gets noticed when he walks through a door. Women see him, they notice. And then, nothing much happens. He spends most of the night standing near the drinks table scrolling his phone, waiting for someone to come to him. The second guy is average, medium everything, nothing that should turn heads. But he's leaning against the wall in conversation with a woman who keeps touching her collarbone and laughing. Not politely laughing, genuinely laughing. By the end of the night, he's exchanged numbers with two different women, and the third one asked her friend who he was. The good-looking guy went home alone and convinced himself women only want rich men. The average guy didn't think that hard about it. He just went home. That scene plays out constantly. Every city, every social circle, every age group, and the reason behind it will completely reframe how you think about attraction. Here at Brutal Relationship, we skip the comfortable lies and go straight to what's actually true, even when it challenges everything you thought you knew. That's the whole point of this channel, because here's what the good-looking guy at that party never understood. Attraction isn't arithmetic. You don't add up enough physical advantages and automatically get the result you want. Women aren't vending machines where you deposit the right currency and something drops out. They're responding to something much older, much deeper, and honestly much more interesting than a checklist. 7 things, all of them trainable. None of them requiring a new face or a bigger bank account. Let's go. 1. Composure. Under pressure. Something goes wrong in front of her. Your card gets declined at the restaurant. You give wrong directions and you both end up lost. Someone at the table makes a comment that's clearly aimed at you. What does your face do? What does your body do? What energy immediately fills the space around you? She's watching that, not consciously in some calculating way, instinctively, because somewhere ancient in human wiring, that moment answers a question that matters enormously. When life gets hard, is this person going to stay level, or is everything going to become about managing their reaction? There's real psychology behind this. Emotional regulation, the ability to stay composed when circumstances turn uncomfortable, is one of the strongest indicators of long-term psychological health. Women aren't looking for a robot with no feelings. They're looking for someone whose feelings don't hijack the entire room. Picture this. Chris is on a second date. They've been looking forward to this restaurant for a week. He planned it specifically. They get there, and there's been a mix-up with the reservation. It's gone. He has 2 options. Option 1, get visibly frustrated, make the hostess uncomfortable. Let the whole date feel tense from that point forward. Option 2, shrug, look at her, say, okay, I actually know a better spot 2 streets over anyway. This worked out. Same problem. Completely different energy. She talked about option 2 Chris for months. Not because the food was better, because he didn't make a small inconvenience feel like a catastrophe. That steadiness communicates something profound. It says, when real difficulty shows up, I won't collapse, and I won't explode. You will feel safe with me. So what do? Start practicing composed responses in the small moments. Traffic that should infuriate you. Plans that fall apart last minute. Low-stakes inconveniences that usually trigger a reaction. Train your nervous system in the rehearsal so that the performance is natural. Because she will see the performance, and it will matter more than you expect. 2. The ability to lead, without controlling. I don't know, what do you feel like doing? Sounds like you're being considerate. And yes, sometimes it is, but as a pattern, as your default response to any decision, it doesn't feel like flexibility. It feels like you're not really there. Like she walked in hoping for a co-pilot and found an empty seat. Here's what most guys completely misread about leadership in attraction. It has nothing to do with being dominant or controlling or making every decision unilaterally. It's about being willing to create direction when direction is needed. It's about showing up with a plan that shows you were thinking about her experience before she even arrived. Compare these 2 versions of the same interaction. Version 1. So I was thinking we grabbed dinner at this Peruvian place on 5th. Food is incredible. And if the vibe's off, we can walk to that cocktail bar around the corner after. You up for it? Version 2. I'm not sure. What do you want to do? Both technically give her input, but one of them signals presence, intention, someone steering. Think about this beyond dating for a second. In every area of life, the people who create clarity in uncertain situations are the ones everyone gravitates toward. Not because they're bossy, because they're useful, because being around them feels easier. That same principle applies here. When you can make a plan, commit to a direction, and move things forward without needing to poll the room, you become someone worth following. And here's the subtle truth underneath all of this. When you lead the small moments well, she trusts you with the big ones. So what do? develop opinions, cultivate actual preferences about food, experiences, activities, not as performance, but as genuine character development. A man who knows what he likes and isn't apologetic about having taste is inherently more interesting than someone who outsources every preference to avoid the risk of being wrong. 3. Real curiosity about who she actually is. Most men ask questions. That part they've figured out. Ask questions, seem interested, check that box. But asking a question and genuinely wanting to know the answer are two completely different things, and she can feel the difference immediately. Here's where it gets interesting. The single most underrated thing you can do in any human connection, not just romantic, is remember what someone told you and bring it back later without being prompted. That's it. That one behavior, done consistently, does more than almost anything else in the attraction toolkit. Why? Because when someone remembers what you said, not because it was practically useful to them, not because they had a reason to write it down, but just because they were actually paying attention, something shifts in your brain. You feel genuinely seen. And feeling seen is one of the rarest and most powerful experiences in adult life. Take someone like David. He went on a lot of first dates, pretty good at conversation, but here's what he started doing. Differently after a while, at the end of a first date he'd quietly note one specific thing she mentioned that seemed personally important to her. Then 3 days later he'd text, "Hey, did that presentation thing end up going okay?" Not a grand gesture, just proof that he heard her. That small shift changed his entire dating trajectory. Genuine curiosity, wanting to know her perspective on things, what built her, what she's quietly working toward, communicates one thing above everything else. You're interesting enough to be curious about, not just attractive enough to pursue, and that distinction lands in a place most men never reach. So what do? In your next real conversation, resist the instinct to speak when she pauses. Ask a follow-up question that proves you heard the last thing she said, not a script question, a real one. What made you feel that way? Or, did that change how you see it now? One good follow-up question is worth an hour of impressive storytelling. 4. A life that was full before she showed up. Here's the counterintuitive truth that takes most men years to understand. The most attractive version of you is not the one that drops everything, rearranges his schedule constantly, and makes her the center of gravity in his world from the jump. That feels romantic in theory. In practice, it registers as pressure, as someone without much going on, as someone whose sense of self is now tied to how this goes, and that's a weight she didn't sign up to carry. Think about what it actually communicates when a man has things he's genuinely passionate about. A training goal he's chasing, a creative project nobody asked him to start, a tight group of friends he actually shows up for. It communicates that he chose to be here, not that he has nowhere else to be. Those are completely different messages. After his long-term relationship ended, Marcus threw himself into building something he'd been postponing for years, a ceramics hobby he'd always told himself was too niche, too weird. He started going to a studio every Saturday morning. When he got back into dating, he'd sometimes mention being unavailable certain mornings because of it. Women were curious about it. One told him directly, "There's something really attractive about someone who has their own thing that isn't about impressing anyone." She wasn't falling for the ceramics. She was falling for the selfhood, the evidence that there was someone actually there. Here's the thing. This isn't about playing games or manufacturing unavailability. It's about having genuine depth, a life you're genuinely living. Because when you have that, your choice to include someone in it means something real. It's a gift, not a default. So what do? Ask yourself honestly. Outside of work and dating, what would you be doing? What have you been postponing? What did a younger version of you love that got quietly buried? Start there. Build the life. Not for attraction strategy. For you. The attraction part is just what tends to follow. 5. The courage to be honest. When it's uncomfortable, picture a man who agrees with everything, who smooths over every friction, who adjusts his opinion the moment he senses pushback. He thinks he's being easygoing. What she's actually experiencing is someone whose words can't be trusted, because he'll say whatever the moment requires. Here's what nobody talks about openly. Women find intellectual honesty deeply attractive. Not confrontation, not contrarianism, actual honest engagement, the kind where you have perspective and you can hold it calmly even when she raises an eyebrow. Because if you fold immediately on small things, What happens when something that actually matters comes up? She's already doing the math. Ryan is having dinner with someone he really likes. She says something about a mutual topic that he genuinely disagrees with. He's tempted to just nod along and keep the energy smooth. Instead, he says, "I actually see that differently. Can I tell you why?" Not aggressive. Not a debate move, just honest. She pushes back. He listens, considers it, holds his position where he still believes it. Says, "I hear what you're saying, I'm just not fully there yet." She texted her best friend that night. He actually has opinions, like real ones. That moment built more trust than the previous 2 dates combined. Because now she knows, when he says something good, he means it. His kindness isn't performance. His agreement isn't just social lubrication. So what do? Practice holding a calm perspective in low-stakes conversations. Not to be difficult, to build the muscle. The ability to say, "I see it differently" without the room catching fire is rarer than you think, and women feel the presence of that kind of grounded honesty before they can even name what they're responding to. 6. The emotional range to sit in difficult moments. A lot of men received a very clear message growing up. Hold it together, don't show too much, keep moving. And then those same men wonder why their relationships feel like they're always running at half depth. Let's be precise about what emotional availability actually means, because it gets misunderstood constantly. It's not about being vulnerable on the first date. It's not about making every conversation heavy. It's about having enough range to stay present when something genuinely difficult comes up, without deflecting, without cracking a joke to escape the weight, without suddenly needing to fix everything in 30 seconds to make your own discomfort go away. She doesn't need you to be her therapist. She needs to know that when life gets real, you won't vanish. Sophie had been seeing someone for about 6 weeks when she got hard news about a family member. He went awkward immediately, changed the subject, made an overly practical suggestion. She understood he wasn't trying to be cold, he just didn't know what to do with it, but something shifted for her after that. A friend of hers, someone she'd always seen as just a friend, heard what she was going through and simply said, "That's a lot to carry. I'm not going anywhere if you want to talk about it." Just that. No fixing, no deflecting, just steady presence. She told me later, "I realized I'd been dating the wrong person the whole time. He didn't do anything spectacular. He just stayed. So what do? Start practicing in your existing relationships, with friends, with family. When someone is going through something difficult, resist the urge to immediately fix or lighten it. Stay in the discomfort for an extra moment. Ask, how are you actually feeling about all of it? One question. That's the whole exercise. You're building a reflex that will quietly transform how you show up in every close relationship you have. 7. The confidence that doesn't need an audience. Real confidence, the kind that actually moves people, doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk into a room looking for confirmation. It doesn't need the conversation to circle back to its achievements. It's not performing. It's just present. And this is where so many men get completely derailed, because the version of confidence that gets marketed, the loud, chest-out, look-at-me version, is actually the opposite of what genuinely attracts people. Arrogance isn't confidence wearing a louder costume. Arrogance is insecurity asking everyone in the room to please confirm that it's okay. Real confidence doesn't need that confirmation. It's already settled. Think about the difference between someone who can laugh at himself because he's genuinely at peace with being imperfect, and someone who bristles at the lightest teasing because their entire sense of self depends on being seen a certain way. One of those people is magnetic to be around. The other is exhausting because you're constantly managing their emotional whether without being asked to. Here's the thing. A woman can feel very quickly whether the man across from her is okay with himself or whether her approval is what's currently holding him together. And when your sense of self is dependent on her validation, she can't actually relax around you. Because now she's responsible for something she never agreed to manage. Genuine confidence walks into the room without needing the room to validate the entrance. It compliments other men without feeling threatened. It sits comfortably in silence. It asks questions without ego involvement in the answers. That energy, non-needy, grounded, just completely real, is one of the most quietly powerful things a person can carry. So what do? Identify where in your life you're performing versus actually feeling grounded. Notice when you're seeking validation you haven't examined. The internal work here, honest reflection, Maybe therapy, the kind of conversations with yourself you've been avoiding. That's where the actual shift happens. Because when you stop needing her approval to feel okay, something wild happens. You become exactly the kind of person she genuinely wants to give it to. Go back through all 7. Composure under pressure, leading without controlling, real curiosity, a full life, honest engagement, emotional range, quiet confidence. Notice what didn't make the list. Height isn't there. Income isn't there. Your jawline didn't come up once. That's not because physical reality is irrelevant. Attraction is layered, and anyone saying otherwise is oversimplifying. But those things are largely fixed. You either have them, or you work around them. Every single thing on this list is buildable. These aren't personality types you're born into. These are skills, habits, and ways of moving through the world that get developed through actual practice and real self-reflection. The average guy at that party wasn't running a strategy. He'd just been quietly building these things, probably without ever framing them as dating advice. He built them as character. And character, it turns out, is the most attractive thing a person can develop. None of this is a manipulation playbook. It's a description of what it looks like to genuinely become someone worth being with. Not because you've optimized your approach, because you've done the actual work. And when you do, the right woman doesn't feel like a conquest. She feels like a natural consequence.